Good morning. Well, good day, whatever time you're watching this. My name is Pastor Kristopher Kollar. I'm the pastor of Pleasant Valley Lutheran Church near Malabar Farm and St. Paul Lutheran Church in Lucas, Ohio. Greetings. We are reading through the Bible with commentary. We are in the book of Deuteronomy, the fifth book of the Bible, the last book of what is called the Torah. The first 5 books of the Bible are generally recognized as the law. And it's the law and the history of the people of Israel and how they came to be. So it goes all the way back to the beginning with the creation of the world, when God said, let's make humans special and let's make humans have a break on the 7th day. And then it talks about how they went from one person, Abraham, to Isaac, to Jacob, who became known as Israel, who had 12 sons, who became the 12 tribes of Israel. And to kind of give this background history. And then they went to Egypt, and then they came back from Egypt. And at this point, they are perched on the edge of the promised land, about to come back into Israel, but they haven't quite gone in yet. And before they go in, Moses is giving them lots of instructions. So the first 2 chapters, next 2 chapters are kind of a summation of how they got here. So they talked about how they were wandering around in the desert because the older generation said, no, we can't do this, and didn't give credit to God. So God's like, fine, you won't do this. Your kids, who you said will be plunder and booty, they will do this. So those kids are now receiving instruction. And of course, giving instruction to kids is always tricky because we want them to know the history. We want them to know where they've come from and where they're going. And we want them to practice the same things. But each person's an individual that has the ability to choose what they choose. And so we will see how the children choose. But for right now, we're still in the history. Yesterday we read about them defeating King Sihon of the Amorites and made a distinction between the Amorites and the Ammonites. Ammonites and Moabites were founded from Lot and his daughters, and so they're sort of cousins. And they don't like them much, but they're not going to hurt them or touch them. And also the children of Esau in the land of Seir. They're also considered cousins because Jacob's brother was Esau. But the Amorites, fair game. So yesterday we read about defeating King Sihon. Today we're at defeat of King Og, and then more. So chapter 3. When we headed up the road to Bashan, King Og of Bashan came out against us, he and all his people, for battle at Edrei. The Lord said to me, do not fear him, for I have handed him over to you, along with his people and his land. Do to him as you did to King Sihon of the Amorites, who reigned in Heshbon. So the Lord our God also handed over to us King Og of Bashan and all his people. We struck him down until not a single survivor was left. At that time we captured all his towns. There was no citadel that we did not take from them. 60 towns, the whole region of Argob, the kingdom of Og and Bashan. All these were fortress towns with high walls, double gates, and bars, besides a great many villages. And we utterly destroyed them as we had done to King Sihon of Heshbon, in each city utterly destroying men, women, and children. But all the livestock and the plunder of the towns we kept as spoil for ourselves. Verse 8. So at that time we took from the 2 kings of the Amorites and the land beyond the Jordan, from the Wadi Arnon to Mount Hermon. The Sidonians call Hermon Syrian, and the Amorites call it Sinir. So Hermon, we read yesterday, also they said Mount Hermon, or they'll say Hermon, the land of Hermon. Mount Sinai is the highest point in Hermon. Lots of discussion about where that could be. Where most people think it is now has the monastery of St. Catherine on top of it. But it's not for sure the location of Mount Sinai where Moses received the 10 Commandments. Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. But that whole area is known as Hermon. And did I just mess that up and say Mount Heman? Nope. Hermon. I might have just messed that all up. But lots of these place names, are very ancient. And so sometimes we're not exactly sure where they were. Some of them we know, but some of them we don't know. Verse 10, all the towns of the tableland, the whole of Gilead, and all of Bashan as far as Salica and Edrei, towns of Og's kingdom in Bashan. Now only King Og of Bashan was left to the remnant of the Rephaim. In fact, his bed, an iron bed, can still be seen in Rabbah of the Ammonites. Get it mixed up. Now how does one of the Ammonites have his iron bed? Because even back then there were people that were like, oh, let's go look at this thing. And what was the interesting thing to see? This huge bed, because he was one of the descendants of the Rephaim. He was tall, he was big. By the common cubit, it is 9 cubits long and 4 cubits wide. Cubits like length of a man's forearm, so about 1.5 feet. So if it's 9 cubits long, I can do math. That'd be like 13.5 feet long, and 4 cubits wide. That would be about 6 feet wide. So it's a king-size bed, but it's really long king-size bed. It's a king plus. It's bigger than a California king. It's big. As for the land that we took possession of at that time, I gave to the Reubenites and the Gadites the territory north of Aroer, that is on the edge of Wadi Arnon, as well as half the hill country of Gilead with its towns. And I gave the half-tribe of Manasseh the rest of Gilead and all of Bashan, Og's kingdom. The whole region of Argob, all that portion of Bashan used to be called a land of Rephaim. Jair the Manassite acquired the whole region of Argob as far as the border of the Geshurites and the Maacathites, and he named them, that is Bashan, after himself. Jair, that is to this day. So many place names. To Machir I gave Gilead. And to the Reubenites and the Gadites I gave the territory of Gilead as far as the Wadi Arnon, with the middle of the Wadi as a boundary, and up to the Jabbok, the Wadi being boundary of the Ammonites. The Arabah also, with the Jordan and its banks, from Chinnereth down to the sea of Arabah, the Dead Sea, with the lower slopes of Pisgah on the east. We're like, what? Okay, we just read this a few chapters ago, how when they got to east of the Jordan, and they defeated the Amorites, the Reubenites and the Danites said, oh, this is a nice area. We have lots of sheep. We have lots of cows. We would rather settle here than go into the promised land. And so it wasn't just that Moses gave them that land. They asked for that land, and they wanted that land. And Moses originally was kind of mad at them. What? You're going to settle here and not come into the promised land and fight all these other people with us? And they're like, no, we'll fight, but we're going to set up herd flock pens. We're going to set up pens and areas for our wives and our children to hang out. And we will come with you. In fact, we'll go in the front as you attack people in the promised land. So when Moses says, I gave, that's after the Reubenites and the people that are, and Reubenites is, remember, Reuben is one of the 12 sons. Gad is one of the 12 sons. So the 2 tribes of Reuben and Gad. And then also half tribe of Manasseh, because Joseph had 2 sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. So Manasseh and Ephraim together are one tribe, but they're really half tribes. So 2.5 tribes are settling east of the Jordan. And in this little summary, Moses just says, I gave them this land, leaving out the whole part about them asking for it. And even with utterly destroying all the people from King Sihon and King Og, what I remember them saying is they brought back a lot of people, and Moses was like, only the young virgins, anybody male, get rid of them. And so they took some slaves, but they did take a lot from them. So all of these place names basically are delineating where Gilead is, which is on the east side of the Jordan River. Verse 18, at that time I charged you as follows, although the Lord your God has given you this land to occupy, all your troops shall cross over, armed as the vanguard of your Israelite king. Only your wives, your children, and your livestock, and I know that you have much livestock, shall stay behind in the towns that I have given to you. When the Lord gives rest to your kindred as to you, and they too have occupied the land that the Lord is giving them beyond the Jordan, then each of you may return to the property that I have given you. And I charged Joshua as well at that time, saying, Your own eyes have seen everything that the Lord your God has done to these two kings. So the Lord will do to all the kingdoms into which you are about to cross. Do not fear them, for it is the Lord your God who fights for you. So Moses, all of these summary of history and the summary of the law is as Moses is about to be done, go up and die or disappear, and leave Joshua behind in charge. So this is just marching orders before he's gone. Verse 23. At that time too I entreated the Lord, saying, O Lord God, you have only begun to show your servants your greatness and your might. What God in heaven or on earth can perform deeds and mighty acts like yours? Let me cross over to see the good land beyond the Jordan, that the good hill country and the Lebanon. But the Lord was angry with me on your account and would not heed me. The Lord said to me, Enough from you. Never speak to me of this matter again. Go up to the top of Pisgah and look around you to the west, to the north, to the south, and to the east. Look well, for you shall not cross over this Jordan. But charge Joshua and encourage and strengthen him, because it is he who shall cross over at the head of this people, and who shall secure the possession of the land that you will see. So we remained in the valley opposite Beth Peor. So nobody knows exactly, it's kind of unclear why God does not let Moses go across. Somehow when he struck the rock instead of speaking to the rock is one of the possibilities. Maybe because he was mad, but apparently he asked God again, please can I go to the promised land? And God's like, nope, enough, I don't want to hear about it again. For whatever reason, not happening. Chapter 4. So now, Israel, give heed to the statutes and the ordinances that I am teaching you to observe, so that you may live to enter and occupy the land that the Lord, the God of your ancestors, is giving you. You must neither add to anything what I command you, not to take away what I command you, nor take away anything from it, but keep the commandments of the Lord your God, with which I am charging you. So what makes the Israelites special, at least in part what they think they makes them special and really does, is that this is their law code. And to have a law code and to say this is how we agree that we should live as a society is kind of a big deal. There's other famous law codes through history. The Code of Hammurabi is one that comes to mind. The Magna Carta, when the nobleman said to the king, you have to also obey the law, not just us. Or the Magna Carta, I already said that one. The Mayflower Compact, when they're about to get off the boat and land and become pilgrims, they're like, well, how shall we rule ourselves? What are the rules that we're going to live by? So this law that we're getting summed up and kind of incomplete, total complete version of the law here in Deuteronomy is this is the code that we as Israelites agree to live by. And this is how we're going to live as a society. So, verse 3. You have seen for yourselves what the Lord did with regard to Baal of Peor, how the Lord your God destroyed from among you everyone who followed the Baal of Peor, while those of you who held fast to the Lord your God are all alive today. Verse 5. See, just as the Lord my God has charged me, I now teach you statutes and ordinances for you to observe in the land that you are about to enter and occupy. You must observe them diligently, for this will show your wisdom and discernment to the peoples, who when they hear all these statutes will say, Surely this great nation is a wise and discerning people. For what other great nation has a God so near to it as the Lord our God is whenever we call to him? And what other great nation has statutes and ordinances as just as this entire law that I am setting before you today? So this is what's going to make us a great nation, because we have laws, we have rules, statutes, ordinances that we're going to live by, and that makes us a great nation, a good people. Verse 9, but take care and watch yourselves closely, so as neither to forget the things that your eyes have seen, nor to let them slip from your mind all the days of your life. Make them known to your children and your children's children, how you once stood before the Lord your God at Horeb, when the Lord said to me," it's Horeb is the one that's Mount Sinai, not Hermon. I messed up earlier. "When the Lord said to me, 'Assemble the people for me, and I will let them hear my words, so that they may learn to fear me as long as they live on the earth, and may teach their children so.' You approached and stood at the foot of the mountain, while the mountain was blazing up to the very heavens, shrouded in dark clouds. Then the Lord spoke to you out of the fire. You heard the sound of the words, but saw no form. There was only a voice. He declared to you his covenant, which he charged you to observe. That is the 10 Commandments. In Hebrew, that's the 10 words, his 10 words. And how the 10 words are divided up depends on whether you're Jewish or Catholic or Lutheran or Protestant. There's a lot of different divisions of how we divide up the 10 words. The 10 Commandments, and he wrote them on 2 stone tablets. And the Lord charged me at that time to teach you the statutes and the ordinances for you to observe in the land that you are about to cross into and occupy." Verse 15, "Since you saw no form when the Lord spoke to you at Horeb out of the fire, take care and watch yourselves closely, so that you do not act corruptly by making an idol for yourselves in the form of any figure, the likeness of male or female, the likeness of any animal that is in the earth, the likeness of any winged bird that flies in the air, the likeness of anything that creeps on the ground, the likeness of any fish that is in the water under the earth. And when you look up to the heavens and see the sun, the moon, and the stars, and all the host of heaven, do not be led astray and bow down to them and serve them, things that the Lord your God has allotted to all the peoples everywhere under heaven." So don't be worshiping idols, like something that you create and have this physical, tangible thing that you can see. Don't create images. Don't look at the stars and sun and start worshiping them. Worship God who has no form. But the Lord has taken you and brought you out of the iron smelter, out of Egypt, to become a people of his very own possession, as you are now. Verse 21, "The Lord was angry with me because of you, and he vowed that I should not cross the Jordan, and that I should not enter the good land that the Lord your God is giving for your possession. For I am going to die in this land without crossing over to the Jordan, but you are going to cross over and take possession of that good land. So be careful not to forget the covenant that the Lord your God made with you, and not to make for yourselves an idol in the form of anything that the Lord your God has forbidden you. For the Lord your God is a devouring fire, a jealous God." So once again, I'm telling you all these things because I'm not going with you. And you need to, number one thing, do not make idols. Verse 25, "When you have had children and children's children and become complacent in the land, if you act corruptly by making an idol in the form of anything, thus doing what is evil in the sight of the Lord your God and provoking him to anger, I call heaven and earth to witness against you today that you will soon utterly perish from the land that you are crossing the Jordan to occupy. You will not live long in it, but will be utterly destroyed. The Lord will scatter you among the peoples. Only a few of you will be left among the nations where the Lord will lead you. There you will serve other gods made by human hands, objects of wood and stone, that neither see nor hear nor eat nor smell. From there you will seek the Lord your God, and you will find him if you search for him with all your heart and soul." So if you don't worship God, which is what's going to happen, then God's going to spread you out and scatter you and destroy you. But if you are somewhere out there and you turn toward God, you will find him, which is a good word even for us today. If you turn toward God, you will find him. God is there and he wants to have a relationship with us. And when we turn toward him, then he is there and we will find him. Verse 30, "In your distress, when all these things have happened to you in time to come, you will return to the Lord your God and heed him, because the Lord your God is a merciful God. He will neither abandon you nor destroy you. He will not forget the covenant with your ancestors that he swore to them." So the covenant was the promise, the agreement. A covenant is a contract, and a contract is an agreement between two parties. In this case, it's originally between God and Abraham, and it was between God and Abraham's son Isaac, and then it was between God and his son Isaac's son Jacob, who became known as Israel because he wrestled with God, and now with the 12 children of Israel, now 12 tribes. This is still the covenant that God has made with them. And he said, but if you don't keep the covenant, God is faithful, but people surely are not. Verse 32, for ask now about former ages, long before your own, ever since the day that God created human beings on the earth. Ask from one end of heaven to the other, has anything so great as this ever happened, or has its like ever been heard of? Has any people ever heard the voice of God speaking out of a fire, as you have heard and lived? Or has any God ever attempted to go and take a nation for himself from the midst of another nation, by trials, by signs and wonders, by war, by a mighty hand and an outstretched arm, and by terrifying events, terrifying displays of power, as the Lord your God did for you in Egypt, before your very eyes? Like, has any other God ever done this? Taken a whole group of people out from amongst another group, created a whole nation, and walked with them and taken care of them. Verse 35, to you it was shown, so that you would acknowledge that the Lord is God. There is no other besides him. From heaven he made you hear his voice to discipline you. On earth he showed you his great fire, while you heard his words coming out of the fire. And because he loved your ancestors, he chose their descendants after them. He brought you out of Egypt with his own presence, by his great power, driving out before you nations greater and mightier than yourselves, to bring you in, giving you their land for a possession, as it is still today. So acknowledge today and take to heart that the Lord is God in heaven above and on the earth beneath. There is no other. Keep his statutes and his commandments, which I am commanding you today, for your own well-being, that of your descendants after you, so that you may long remain in the land that the Lord your God is giving you for all time. Verse 41. Then Moses set apart on the east side of the Jordan 3 cities, to which a homicide could flee, someone who unintentionally kills another person, the two not having been at enmity before. The homicide could flee to one of these cities and live. And I think homicide should probably be the manslaughter. So somebody who killed somebody, but they weren't like setting out to first-degree murder, where they're just setting out to kill somebody, but somehow they've killed somebody. And oops, I didn't mean to kill this person, but their avenger, their close relative, has the right to come and kill you. So what do is you are allowed to flee to one of these 3 cities on the east, 3 cities on the west, and you can live there safely, and the avenger cannot come and kill you as long as you're within that city. But you also get a trial. So if you're found to have been, I think, trying to remember if I get it correctly, if you were intentional, then even the city of refuge isn't going to help you any. The two not having been at enmity before, the homicide could flee to one of these cities and live. These are in the wilderness on the tableland belonging to the Reubenites, Ramoth in Gilead belonging to the Gadites, and Golan in Bashan belonging to the Manassites, the half-tribe of Manasseh. Verse 44. This is the law that Moses set before the Israelites. These are the decrees and the statutes and the ordinances that Moses spoke to the Israelites when they had come out of Egypt, beyond the Jordan, in the valley opposite Beth Peor, in the land of King Sihon of the Amorites, who reigned at Heshbon, whom Moses and the Israelites defeated when they came out of Egypt. They occupied his land and the land of King Og of Bashan, the 2 kings of the Amorites, on the eastern side of the Jordan, from Aroer, which is the edge of the Wadi Arnon, as far as Mount Sirion, that is Mount Hermon, together with all the Arabah on the east side of the Jordan, as far as the sea of the Arabah, under the slopes of the Pisgah. So that they're saying this is a summary, and now we're going to actually start hearing the law. Tomorrow we'll start with the 10 Commandments. But basically this was like the introductory material for the address, and much of this would have been written by Moses, but not all of this. A lot of this would have been kind of summed up by leaders later on and said, okay, we need to make sure that our children and our grandchildren and future generations know where we've come from and why we are doing what we're doing. And they need to know these are the rules, these are the statutes and the ordinances, this is the law. And it's always good to know the law. That's why we have signs that say speed limit or whatever the other laws are that often will, I've just seen so many signs on the way to where I am right now. Wear your seatbelt because it's the law. If we have laws but we don't know we have a law, then how are we going to follow the law? Some laws we just think that you should know, like you don't go steal something. Well, why not? Well, it's one of the 10 Commandments. Don't steal. But some laws are not as obvious, such as don't speed. Well, what is speeding in this particular context or location? So then they have signs up that say speed limit this, speed limit that. In Canada, the speed limits were all in kilometers, and I had to do math in my head to try to figure out, okay, so how fast am I allowed to go? If I'm going to try to follow the law, then the signs are very helpful. So if you are an Israelite and you're going to be a good Israelite, how do you know what the law is? It's spelled out in the book of Deuteronomy. It's also in a lot of Exodus and Leviticus, but especially the book of Deuteronomy just spells out these are the rules, these are the ordinances, these are the statutes, this is the law code that we as an Israelite nation are going to live by. So, and it's good to be a nation of laws. We are also in the United States a nation of laws, as our many modern countries nowadays have laws. And it's always surprising the laws that are on the books and the laws that other countries don't have or do have, and we have and they don't. We like